Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sweet Johnson from the internet.
I hope that you guys like the word boogie because I'm going to be using it a lot today.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear. And, guys, I think Jessica Biel works out.
Oh, I think she works out an awful lot, and she certainly works for me. We'll talk a little bit about her and everyone else because, hey, there's a little something for everybody in this week. Because this week we are reviewing Blade Trinity. I don't know if the name strikes you, but it's the third one in the Blade trilogy.
So they're actually using the names correctly, unlike the Star Wars movies.
Or Fast and the Furious, where they're just like, who cares what we're going to name it? It's like there's 15 different things. It says something on the poster, it says something in the advertising campaign, and then it says something different on the title screen. So you don't even know. It's just your guess is as good as ours over here in the old Fast and Furious world. They don't fast and loose. That's what those guys are playing.
Eventually, it's just going to be the number. Like, have you seen 12 yet? It's just called.
Well, I mean, in the poster, they're doing like F9, and so like you're not far off. But you're saying they even drop
they
the
would
F.
use the same naming mechanisms that that Friends does, where it's like the one with Jason Statham.
Yes, that would be so effective, actually.
Well, if anyone wants to go back and look throughout the show note history of Hero Movie Podcast, you'll find a very similar structure to how I start the show notes for every single episode. So, fun fact for you if you'd like to go back and check out what I write. I know not most.
I love fun facts.
Most people don't see it. Most people don't read it, but I put a little something in there every week. It's almost like an extra bonus for those of you that likes the reading. I don't like the reading, but somebody does.
Adam's just about making stuff. You know, he doesn't need people to be listening or reading his stuff. He just needs to make stuff.
I just gotta create. And you know how I create? Because I get a lot of energy. I get energy from people, and I get most of that energy over at patreon.com/HMP. Those lovely people are helping everyone here in the time of struggle. I have lost my job. Bruce is over on the corner. He's playing a harmonica, which he's not even good at, which is sad. And then, Sean, I don't need to tell you about the insurance industry. It's out the window. Just forget about it. And you can help all this out.
I'm trying to train this monkey to grind this organ.
Hey, listen. I understand.
Up to your eyeballs training a monkey.
You also have to make sure that he can steal watches, because that's a very important part of having a monkey around that he can go over and just be like, oh, look, I'm a cute monkey. Stolen watch.
I own a monkey solely to protect me from poison dates.
The weirdest part is of all of us, Bruce has had the most interaction with actual monkeys.
You wanna? Have I ever told my monkey story?
Oh, Blade Trinity, sit aside. We're going for a monkey story.
All right. So I am too young to have remembered this. But when I was a toddler, my parents lived next door to a house that had a pet monkey. And for some reason, that monkey hated me. Hated me. And so there was a small fence that lined our yard. And so the monkey couldn't just immediately attack me. The monkey would try, but wouldn't attack me. And again, I don't know any of this. This is my mom's story about me. And so one day we're in the yard. My mom's putting laundry out, and the monkey sees me and immediately starts picking up small rocks and clothespins that are strewn about the yard. It starts throwing them at me. Just starts throwing them at me. And my mom's like, get away from him, you damn monkey. And picks me up and runs me into the house. And the monkey's screaming and throwing stuff. And to the door, following to the door, throwing stuff at me, trying to get at me. And my mom was goes over to the neighbor's house, and the neighbors, you would think that the neighbors would be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But instead, the neighbors are like, yeah, he doesn't like kids.
At least they didn't say that you deserved it, Sean.
I'm telling you, the boy had it coming. Talks too much crap around here.
I got attacked by a monkey when I was little.
Now, at the same time, Sean, I do have to throw this out there, just because. Is there any chance that your mom could be pulling the same thing that you pulled with your kids and Michael in the Jackson 5?
It's not far-fetched. My mom does love a good story, a good yarn, as I do. But I don't think so, because that story was told a lot. And it wasn't something where, like, oh man, this is going to pay off later. Like there's no moment where, like, that idiot thought that the monkey threw stuff at him. Like, there's none of that.
Well, that's okay. Good. But because you never quite know. But I think all families have those little apocryphal stories that get brought up that really have nothing to do with anything. But it goes, hey, I feel like embarrassing you in front of all these people. What about that time when ... Not a good thing. So if you don't want to be a poo-flinging monkey, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. How's that for a roundabout?
I love it that there's a world where those are your only two choices.
Yeah, pretty much. Those are the only two things. At the same time, now I do want to say this. I feel like I don't normally do this, but I feel like I got to preface it. If anyone who is a supporter over at Patreon does drop off due to harsh times and everything, please do not give us money if it's going to cause your family any kind of hardship or anything else like that. No, we don't have anybody giving $1 million a month, so it's not that big a deal. But at the same time, too, take care of yourself and your family as well. But if you do have a little to spread around, Patreon.com/HMP. We really appreciate it. Plus, you get a pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, all that kind of good stuff. So how could you not enjoy yourself, everybody? Speaking of enjoy yourself, let's go ahead and take a listen to the trailer for Blade Trinity.
I have to ask you a couple of questions. What can you tell me about vampires?
They exist.
First, he faced their gods. Then he battled their demons. But all that was only the beginning.
He's come back.
Vampire final solution.
You can't win this war alone.
Who the hell are you people?
My father meant for us to help you.
Whistler's daughter. What the hell makes you think you know about hunting vampires?
Just for starters, I used to be one.
Blade Trinity.
There's nothing stopping them now.
There's me.
Oh, yeah. That was a trailer for Blade Trinity. And let me ask you, you guys big Chemical Brothers fans or whatever the... Because if you're not, you may not enjoy the soundtrack to this year program.
John Williams, I'll tell you that.
Not exactly, but let's get down to one of the important parts of this. Hopefully this thing works right. Oh, it's not. Quick, do it live. Oh, wait, no, there it is. I'm not used to having extra control here on the board today, so there we go. Bruce, what do you got?
Blade's origin goes back to the Tomb of Dracula, with his first appearance being in issue number 10. What some folks may not know is the significance of the history of Tomb of Dracula, specifically that it signaled the beginning of the end for a concept I loathe, the Comics Code Authority. From 1954 to 1971, the Comics Code Authority banned undead characters. And this effectively banned vampires, unless, of course, a comic goes out of its way for a convoluted reason that a vampire is actually a living vampire like Morbius. Also, at one point, and I'm not joking here, the Comics Code Authority tried to prevent Marv Wolfman from using his last name. And I know what you're thinking, Sean. You're thinking this is just another one of Bruce's tired, unfunny jokes. But seriously, look it up. The Comics Code Authority tried to deny its seal of approval to a comic because it had Wolfman printed in it, but it was Marv Wolfman's last name they flagged. And you see, YouTube didn't invent ridiculous content flagging. They just perfected it. Now, one way to avoid the Comics Code Authority was to call your publication a magazine rather than a comic, which is why some horror comics were called magazines. But once the Comics Code Authority gave the okay to vampires, Marvel jumped on it with Tomb of Dracula. As for why this was their first Bronze Age era horror comic, the official answer is because Dracula was in the public domain and thus didn't cost anything to use. The title spent its first 6 issues on shaky ground, going through several writers and failing to pick a direction to go in. But that all changed with issue number 7 when none other than the Wolfman himself, Marv Wolfman, took over writing duties. 3 issues later, Blade was introduced and Tomb of Dracula was a hit. Wolfman stuck with the title for a while, and in issue 25, he introduced another new character, Hannibal King, portrayed, of course, by Ryan Reynolds in Blade Trinity. Hannibal was just your ordinary guy from Milwaukee, trying to make a buck as a private eye, until he was bitten by the famous vampire Deacon Frost, who himself was portrayed flawlessly by Stephen Dorff in Blade. Now, waking up to find himself one of the undead, King was horrified at what he had become and vowed never to consummate the curse by passing it to another. Thus, King subsisted on blood purchased or stolen from blood banks and consuming only corpses or animals, which makes me think both True Blood and Twilight owe a debt of gratitude to Marv Wolfman. In spite of his vampirism, Hannibal King continues to operate as a private detective, but he only travels and investigates by night. Of course, in true Goyer fashion, Goyer uses King's name, but none of his other significant character traits. While searching for Deacon Frost in the comics, King eventually meets Blade, the vampire hunter, whose mother had been killed by Deacon Frost. Initially, they're distrustful of one another, but eventually they team up to destroy Frost. While investigating a murder, Hannibal King contacts Dr. Strange, of course the Sorcerer Supreme, and through Strange, Hannibal King discovers a spell called the Montesi Formula that can destroy all vampires. Hannibal teams up with a couple of other vampire hunters, including Blade, and releases this spell which destroys Dracula and all current vampires then on Earth, and also prevents any new vampires from being able to exist. King was not destroyed by the Montesi Formula because he had never taken blood from a living human being, but he still required Dr. Strange to perform a complete blood transfusion in order to survive. But this also happened to restore him to human form. So if you break this movie down to its basics, I think that is the comic story it's trying to tell. I have to imagine since Peter Hooton wasn't available, Goyer substituted Natasha Lyonne's character for Strange, and Wesley Snipes exchanged grunting at the camera for acting. In the comics, King and Blade went into business together, starting a detective agency called Borderline Investigations, which makes me think Goyer was hoping to write and direct a series of Lethal Weapon-style buddy cop movies, with Ryan Reynolds as both the comedic member and the straight man, while the part of Blade was played by Madame Tussauds wax figure of Wesley Snipes, because at this point in time, Snipes was rumored to be really hard to work with. Now, eventually, Blade kills Hannibal King in the comics, but it's comics, so he immediately comes back to life. I'm not sure if King has been up to any comics lately, but I kind of hope he does have a part to play in the Mahershala Ali Blade movies. And I'll give them bonus points if Ryan Reynolds plays the part and his every line is just paraphrasing the sentence, "I'm really tired of people telling me I look like Deadpool," while he winks at the camera.
I think we may not be too far off. You never really know. Here's the IMDb plot line for Blade Trinity. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. Blade, now a wanted man by the FBI, must join forces with the Night Stalkers to face his most challenging enemy yet, Dracula. This is, of course, written and directed by David S. Goyer, one of our favorites over here at H&P. Of course, we got Wesley Snipes, Chris Christopherson, Parker Posey, Ryan Reynolds, Dominic Purcell, John Michael Higgins, Triple H, James Remar, like you said, Natasha Lyonne, and Patton Oswalt. Man, oh man, just a crap load of people in this movie. Now, had you guys seen Blade Trinity up to this point?
I had never seen it before. This was my first viewing this morning.
As was me as well.
I saw it when it first came out to home viewing.
Mm-hmm. And so you kind of knew what we were in for here, Bruce. Based upon what we'd seen for the first 2 movies, what were you kind of expecting with this one?
Well, I knew it was directed by Goyer, So I was expecting absolute garbage out of this movie. I'm going to go ahead and show my hand a little bit. It was a lot better than I was expecting.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat because I really was. I had heard so many awful things about it and about the production having, horrible things. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I guess I had such low expectations that, especially given Goyer, that this could be, anything but ridiculously bad. Sean, I mean, coming back to this, were you looking forward to it, or was it just kind of like, oh boy, here we go again?
Well, I remembered hating it when I saw it the first time, and I think the reason why I couldn't stand it was because of Ryan Reynolds. Like, he talked way too much in the movie for my liking.
Mm-hmm.
And now, just because of the way that the entertainment is parsed out, now that you know that he's Deadpool and you know that this is kind of his thing, you're just used to it. I'd seen him in Van Wilder, and so I kind of knew what I was in for with him.
Mm-hmm.
But when you watch this movie now, it's basically a Ryan Reynolds movie. It's him and Parker Posey throughout this entire movie.
Yeah, that's one thing. One thing that caught me off guard is I didn't know how big of a deal Ryan Reynolds was in 2004. Like, I couldn't quite think back and know where he stood, but I was surprised at how much it was pretty much the same formula Ryan Reynolds gives us today. So much so that I wondered if he was able to, like, go ahead and punch up his own lines. Does he improvise a lot? Is he like, Will Smith has his own guy, his own sort of ghostwriter that gets a pass on his lines in any script for a movie he signs on for. Was Reynolds already a big enough deal in 2004 to totally bring his brand to the movie? Because he totally does.
I'm telling you,
well,
I don't know.
I think what ended up happening, and this is just a guess here, is that because Wesley Snipes was just such an awful person to be around during this time, that they didn't get as much footage as they probably needed from Wesley Snipes, and so they had to pad the script a bit. And when you have a guy who's a motor mouth who can just talk and talk all day, that is where you get your footage from, is from that guy, is a guess.
And none of it sounds like it comes from the same writer. You listen to his, just about every single thing that comes out of his mouth in this movie feels like it was like he's not writing a joke about a Hello Kitty tattoo on his butt. Like, that's not what Goyer's doing. Goyer doesn't do stuff like that, but there's so many things that you're just like, oh, Ryan Reynolds did all his own lines in this film. It's so clear to me.
Either that, or maybe he already found his guy back then who's doing some of this for him. I don't know if it's just him, but he had already kind of defined his brand 16 years ago, which I didn't realize that had happened.
So what, or you're thinking that maybe Ryan Reynolds is David Goyer's muse?
I wasn't thinking about it that way, but you never know, maybe. But
there is something about this, because this movie it did surprise me. And it's just because of, what entertainment is like now, that, like, Ryan Reynolds is a way bigger name now than he was then. And so I think that's the biggest surprise. But there is something about this movie that we really need to touch on, because it was jarring watching this movie today, which is just how problematic this movie is. They could not make this movie now based on some of the lines coming out of people's mouths towards women. There is so much women bashing in this movie for a movie with so many great women in it.
Yeah,
it's shocking while watching it, where it was like, ooh man, it's like watching the first Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure now, where you're like, ooh man, I can't believe they said that, things like that. It's that way now with this movie, and this movie isn't even that old. It's 15 years old?
2004.
What was the movie where Val Kilmer is a gay detective?
Oh, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah, like that one is not that old either, but definitely couldn't be made now.
Yeah.
You know what else shouldn't?
It's just.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was just gonna kind of continue on Ryan Reynolds here a little bit, because I feel like this is the thing that I don't know why I feel like I have to talk about this the most, because it is the thing that kind of distracted me more than anything else in here, is that Ryan Reynolds should never do anything more than like a 2-day stubble. because this facial hair is not working. His hair's not working. His makeup's not working. He's great, but everything, how they style him and what they have him look like here, he looks terrible.
It looks like they tried to
it's
nest
the
carbon
dye.
eyelashes.
It's the dye.
Yeah.
I mean, the dye in his hair looks absolutely ridiculous.
A little bit too much eye
wonder
makeup.
why they felt they had to do that. I mean, they're not doing anything to be like faithful to any version of Hannibal King that came before. Like, why? Who decided that he had to have the black hair for this?
Well, Jessica Biel's got kind of the brunette thingy going on here, so he has to go dark because he can't go too light. If you got too lights, it doesn't really work as well, I guess. I don't know.
I say you make Patton Oswalt go dark and let Ryan Reynolds stay light.
I want Patton Oswalt with a bleach blonde goatee.
Oh man, yeah.
I think that would actually work. Chris Christopherson.
Can you guys guess who my favorite character in this movie is?
Well, here's the thing, and I thought about this while watching it, because traditional logic with you would say Parker Posey's easily your favorite character in here. I don't know if I 100%, because she's super, super weird in this one, and I don't know if that takes away or adds to it for you. That's what I don't know.
I think your favorite character is the Pomeranian.
It is definitely Parker Posey. You are right.
Okay.
I love Parker Posey. One of the very rare cases where, she's a pretty lady, but I am not attracted to her. I just really love the performance. I just love Parker Posey. I think that she is a terrific performer. And in this movie, you can see it happen where she basically looks around her and goes, let's see, I got a professional wrestler. I've got a really good-looking British man who isn't a terrific actor. Wesley Snipes doesn't want to be here. You know what? I'm just going to take over. She does. She completely takes over this movie, and with good reason and for good reason, because she is the best part of these movies, of this movie to me. And I just enjoy a performance where you have someone who can play bat spit crazy as well as she can, and she does. And she's like, you know what? Usually I go to about like a 6 or a 7. I'm just going to crank it all the way up this time because, who cares?
And then you add on all of the choices that they made for what her character wears and how she looks and everything. They even took that to 11. It's just like, let's make her look insane.
Well, they try to tart her up, which is a massive mistake. Like, don't tart that lady up. Let that lady wear whatever she wants to wear. And she goes against that, which I love. I love that she's not playing like, look, I am the sexy vixen and I kill people with my sex. I mean, she does have a bit of that.
But most of it's crazy. Most of it's just crazy. You're like, oh,
yes.
She is unhinged.
Yes. And that's what makes this character so infinitely watchable to me. I just love her. I love Parker Posey. If I know that she's in something, I even gave Lost in Space season 2 a try because I did not like the first season.
Yeah.
Because I knew that she'd be in it, and it's just, it's just not for me.
And guys, I don't know if it's because I just wasn't that into the first Blade movie, and maybe I missed some details. And I know actually our review of that movie, we lost like half the recording and had to do a pickup for the whole second half of that episode. I don't remember Blade 1 all that great, but I could have sworn Chris Christopherson died at the end of Blade 1. Like
he
when
does.
he shows up
he does
here,
die at the end.
Okay, good. Because when he shows up here, I'm all puzzled because I could have sworn he died in the first Blade.
Well, it comes back for the second Blade.
Yeah, he's in the second one.
Does? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
see. Yeah. So apparently I didn't care enough about either of those movies. I could have sworn he was dead before he died in this movie.
That's right, everyone. We reviewed both Blade movies.
The second Blade, the reason why people remember it so fondly is because it's so vastly different from the first one. It's kind of your aliens thing. And so it's remembered very fondly, but when you rewatch that movie now, and I think it was even the thing that we ran into watching Blade 2 was that this movie is not as good as I remembered it being.
No.
And in fact, I would say, I've never seen this movie before, but word on the street is that the third movie is the real turd, the real stinker of the trio. I'm just going to say right now, if I had to rewatch a Blade movie, I would rather rewatch this one than either of the first two.
Well, this one's all aged the best, and there's a weird thing about this movie, which I think that I picked up on like towards the end of this movie, which is that it is it owes everything to the Matrix, and it is so very, very Matrixy, this movie. But because we have such a distance now between us and the Matrix, that it seems like its own movie now, even though it clearly owes a debt of gratitude to the first.
And
Matrix.
it's 2004, so like you're even into the Matrix sequels at this point. So like it's still a big deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, once again, I don't remember some of those details from the first two movies, but have the vampires always had the mouth fixtures of the Predalien from Alien versus Predator?
Like the second one.
Okay, because I saw like when Dracula's jaw splits and then the little thing shoots out from the inside. All I can think is, we recently watched Alien versus Predator, and it looks just like the Predalien's mouth fixtures. And then, when the dog breaks out, the same mouth fixture. That's one of those golden moments for me. Like when the little what kind of dog is that again? A Pekingese? Pomeranian. When the little Pomeranian blows out like the combination Predator Alien mouth fixture there, that's worth watching the movie for, because it's not every day you get to see that.
I still feel like they while that's a easy choice there, I still feel like everybody kind of took a lot from John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah,
with the face coming out like that, for sure.
Just recency bias. We very recently watched that other movie, and I haven't seen it in a while. But still, that whole mouth fixture I felt like was almost kind of a new thing here. A whole lot more open flames in this movie than I remember from the first two. And that's a plus with me. I like the ridiculous, like stuff that would not burst into huge amounts of flames, burst into huge amounts of flames in this movie. And I kind of enjoy that. And that's one thing I'm going to say Goyer did right, was he didn't hold back on the pyrotechnics.
Yeah, I mean, just like vampires getting stabbed and then blowing up into ash and everything. And even they made a good point of it in the story of like, hey, this is great. The bodies are gone. You can't investigate and all this kind of stuff. I thought that was a really interesting thing. And you're right. They never let up on that. It just kind of continues. If anything, it increases throughout the movie. And it's great.
This is the kind of movie where if a tricycle rolled down the hill and bumped into a fire hydrant, they would both burst into flames, and I like that.
Yes, agree. Totally agree. And I know we're hopping all over the place here, but we need to talk about Wesley Snipes for a moment, if we can. Because at this point here, this is Wesley Snipes at his craziest, right? I mean,
he's really starting to have financial problems and stuff right now during this era, like a lot of tax problems.
And you got to keep in mind too that not only is he having all of the IRS problems that he's having at this point, but also with Blade 3 specifically and the Night Stalkers, it really does feel like, if you're Wesley Snipes, it has to feel like, oh, they want to make a Night Stalkers movie without Blade.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got to have a little bit of that going on also, where he's like, look, it is basically them trying to make The Fugitive without Harrison Ford.
Yeah, no one wants that.
And so he's got to feel a little bit of that. He's got the IRS all over him. You got to figure that he's probably early 40s at this point, so he's just trying to hold on to being a major movie star. And with all of these things happening all at once, then you have some of the greatest stories to ever come off set. The Patton Oswalt story of him working on Blade Trinity is one of the greatest things that you'll ever hear about movie making. And basically everyone else confirming that, yes, that is all true. That is literally what happened on the set, like things like that. And no, go ahead, Bruce. I'm sorry. I'm
despite his sort of lack of effort in the acting department and the stories that we hear about him just showing up to set when he wants to, maybe using firearms to remind Goyer whose name comes first on the poster, stuff like that. He's still, man, he looks great. like if he were a photography model and you were just making like pictures of Blade for like posters and covers and stuff, he still strikes like a perfect Blade pose here.
Oh,
The
he's still totally
great.
BA, man.
Looks
He's
like a
all
cartoon
over it.
character, which is a good thing here. So he's still looking great. But a lot of the stories that surround Wesley Snipes and Blade Trinity, they have a lot of parallels to more recent stories about Vin Diesel on the set of Fast and Furious and the whole Hobbs and Shaw spinoff and how he felt about that. I'm kind of curious to see if he follows the same trajectory or not.
Well, I like, just a couple for people that might not have heard, like a couple of the stories is like you said, Wesley would show up late whenever he wanted to, just absolutely reeking of marijuana. So he was just getting high, didn't care, didn't bother to remember his lines. And whenever he would have everyone on the set refer to him only as Blade, that's the only thing he would react to, which tells you he's a nutball. And then he would also not talk to people. He would just write on Post-it notes, give it to them, and sign all of them Blade. So that's the kind of things that Wesley Snipes
stories like the Wesley Snipes stories from some other actors' stories, but I feel like he was accused of pulling a gun on David Goyer once too.
I wouldn't be shocked. Listen, I mean, at this point, like I said, he's a loose cannon in the best of senses in this thing. So he's all over the place. You just like let Wesley do what Wesley gonna do.
Yeah,
he's definitely off his nut in this movie, and one of the sad facts of the matter is that in the first two movies, this side of Jackie Chan, I can't think of anyone who's doing their own stunt choreography as well as Wesley Snipes could do it. And then you get to this one, and you barely have Wesley Snipes in this movie because he just doesn't want to be there.
As Patton has said, if you saw his face, that was a shot that he was there for. Every other shot that you don't see his face directly and everything was a stunt double.
Yeah, I believe it. But when we get the shots, man, they are grade A shots when they're stationary.
Oh, even when he's in the
Totally
jail
agree.
cell in the interrogation room there and everything, just wearing his tight shirt, it's just like he still got it. I mean, dude still looks great and looks like he could just rip out of that chair at any second.
He even looks great in that Dolomite movie. He still looks.
Oh yeah,
he still looks ripped.
He is not. He's not
actually
aged.
acting his backside off in the Dolomite movie.
Oh, so good. He is the best part.
Watching this movie, knowing all the behind-the-scenes history of it, but never having seen it, and I'm like, why did people even bother putting up with Wesley Snipes? Like, how does anyone get away with that in the workplace? And then I see him striking a few poses, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I gotta admit, and there's nobody else.
Also, your question answers itself because they didn't. I mean, what ends up happening is that you can behave poorly on a few sets, but if you continue acting poor, you're not going to get any work. And that used to not be the case, but it totally is now. If you are a very hard to deal with human being on set, you will not work.
That's why I think Chris Christopherson's probably a hell of a guy because he keeps getting work and he's an awful actor. He always has been. He's not good. He's not a good actor. Okay, Alice doesn't live here anymore. Sure. I'll give you Alice doesn't live here anymore. The rest of it, no.
What a great way of putting that, Adam. That is the funniest thing you've ever said, buddy.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question for you. We've already established Parker Posey, what she's doing here. We've talked at length here about Wesley Snipes and what he's given us. Ryan Reynolds, we weren't able to appreciate it then, but now when I watch, you can't. I've heard people say this is his worst performance, but you can't hate this performance and then love his performance in Detective Pikachu or Deadpool or
no, because it's the same.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's Ryan Reynolds. That's just it. He's playing Ryan Reynolds, and again, like I said, there's a little bit of something for everybody in this movie. Yeah, pops that shirt off way too much more than it needs to be. There's even a scene in the middle where he's wearing a tank top. They go to the next scene where he's in the interrogation. That shirt comes off, baby. They're giving everybody a little bit of something.
Is Jessica Biel good? Because I like her, but I don't know. Is she is she doing a good job here? Like all I'm doing, and I don't know why I'm making this specific comparison, but in my mind, I'm constantly just putting her side by side with Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp, and I'm deciding that I like Jessica Biel better, which is a weird, oddly specific thing to do. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think I like Jessica Biel's performance better than Evangeline Lilly's in Ant-Man.
Adam, I'm going to make a lot of hay here, so you should go first.
Okay. Jessica Biel, I'm not going to lie to you. That's in my wheelhouse. I don't think she's doing a great job here. She's awful pretty to look at. She's fair enough with the action. It seems to work well enough, and she makes for great eye candy in this movie. But I don't know that she adds anything specific.
Before Sean goes, I do want to tell you, Adam, that I kind of tried to see what people online think about her acting abilities. And according to the internet, she does have nice couch cushions, whatever that means.
Could mean anything. Ashley Furniture fan. I don't know.
Are you the one who said that on the internet? That sounds very Bruceian.
Maybe.
That might be.
Go ahead, John. I want to hear you make some hay.
Okay, so here's my hay, right? Let's compare her to Evangeline Lilly. Evangeline Lilly is the weakest spot of the Ant-Man movies. I think I have stated that on numerous occasions. She's fine. She's totally fine. But she also you get the feeling that she doesn't really want to be there when she's there.
I feel that for a lot of things that she's in, though, too. Maybe that's just something in her character.
It is true.
There's times in Lost where it's just like she doesn't want to be in this.
Right. Or maybe it's just her Canadianness, where she's like, look, I'm too nice to be doing this right now, like that kind of thing. Maybe. Who knows? But the difference between the biggest difference, I think, between Evangeline Lilly and Jessica Biel is that Jessica Biel, and this is my biggest problem with casting certain people in certain like movies where you got to play the tough guy. I have no problem believing Jessica Biel could take out a 350-pound man. I just have no problem with it. When you see her physically, you're like, oh, that girl could totally take that dude down.
They shoot her really well.
There's no question. She's a physical specimen. Also, she can portray action very well. She's very good with action. I don't know about the acting. I don't think she's a very, very good actor.
At the same time,
but
too,
you don't
they
have
didn't
to do much acting in this movie.
Yeah, they didn't give her much to work with.
Right, that's also true. But and also, she's never rang the bell for me where you're like, oh man, she really is an actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't do anything to change my view on that. But what this movie does do is, and it does it very well, is what I call the Jennifer Garner, where Jennifer Garner totally looks like somebody who could take out a 350-pound badass, and so does she. And that is literally all she really needs to be in this movie, is just somebody that you believe is tough as nails and can take people down. And she's totally doing that in this movie. And so if we're comparing her to Evangeline Lilly's job in Ant-Man, then Jessica Biel wins this contest.
And I'll admit, I don't think I did kind of a brief scan of her IMDb or whatever, but I don't think I've ever seen her in anything before. But I totally, absolutely know who she is, but I never watched Seventh Heaven. I never watched the movies that I saw right off the bat that she's been in. So I don't know if she's a good actress or not, but I thought she, considering she probably had next to no direction, she wasn't given a lot to work with. The movie that she's in, I thought she was pretty solid here. And plus, this is pretty early in her career, too, I would imagine.
She is solid in this.
Let me ask you this. Does David Goyer write a lot of good lady roles for ladies? Because not that I can remember thinking back on his kind of filmography and everything.
You had 2 words too many in that role, in that question.
Well, he was trying to tiptoe around lady parts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was just trying to be, I didn't. I'm like, what show am I on again?
You did good. You did good, Adam.
But
I'm behind you. I know what you did. You're all right.
All right, good.
Here's the thing I'm going to say for my cup of tea, based on a sample size of 1, and I suspect there's probably some hoodoo behind the scenes, like maybe the DP was actually directing most of this movie or something along those lines. But I'm going to say Goyer is probably a better director than he is a writer. I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, because I believe one of the reasons that you think David Goyer is a better director than he is a writer, specifically because of this movie, is the fact that I do not believe he choreographed or set up the shot list and everything for all the action, the fight scenes and stuff. I do not for 1 second believe that he had any hand in that. I don't. And
do we know who is responsible for that? Because I got to tell you, there is a very John Wick vibe to this.
I'll take a look.
But here's one thing that I have as a working theory, is that Goyer directed this movie to the same extent that he wrote The Dark Knight. Like, he gets the credit for both of those, but, you know.
The action is so easy to follow in this movie, which I was very surprised by. I thought there would be a lot of shaky camera in this, but there isn't. It's very well done and stylized and pretty. And, you know, whether or not you love the characters is one thing. You can't look at still frames of this movie and think like, oh, wow, that could have been done better.
Okay, I think one of you boys here, he may be one of the big guys because he's listed in this movie as the fight choreography. His name is Clint Caudill, something like that. But check out this list of things he's done: The Matrix, Spider-Man, Minority Report. This stupid thing is flipping out on me. He's done a ton of stuff that you would recognize in everything. Yeah, Spider-Man 3, Constantine, Chuck. He did SWAT, Triple X, Alias, Planet of the Apes, Fast and Furious. This dude gets around. So that's why the stunts are so good. They got a really good guy coordinating all in their stunts.
And they had some good set pieces. They have, all the flames and stuff. That probably the credit to that goes to some effects folks. So I think it's that situation where you put a great team around the guy, and he has to go his way to fail.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what this is that he's an established writer at this point in Hollywood. This isn't his first feature. It's his second, but it is his first super big one that would go out into the public and everything. And so I think they really wanted to put the best, foot behind this. And they got some talented people to surround him for sure.
And I was expecting to see something similar to like when Frank Miller got to direct a movie and when Stephen King got to direct a movie. Woo! Like I was expecting that level disaster. And to be honest, it is competent. I mean, it's competent.
Yeah. This is a very competently made movie. For sure.
Make a note. This is the first time in the history of this podcast I've referred to anything Goyer has done as competent.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, but I'm into it. I'm actually able to forget that Goyer's got the ties to this movie for the most part. Dominic Purcell, man, playing Dracula.
Oh man, Dominic Purcell's like he's not. I won't call him like. I don't think he has the most range as an actor, but whatever he's in, I like him in it. I don't know why.
I do think he has one setting. Like I don't care if he's playing Mick Rory, Heatwave in Legends of Tomorrow, or he's playing Dracula, King of the Vampires. He still has one way he likes to talk. And I mean, he's kind of just got one setting. It's weird seeing him with a little bit of hair and a whole lot skinnier then. Like now he's like taking the muscle bound thing to an extreme. But I like Dominic Purcell a lot, but I never knew him outside of Prison Break and Legends of Tomorrow. And I found out here he has one setting. Maybe that's why we haven't seen him, on the
Is he British? Am I right?
No. I mean,
I'm not right?
Yeah, he's from England.
He is?
Yeah, wait.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he has that weird one setting, because he only has one American accent he can do.
He's from one of those towns that you can't pronounce.
That's the other thing. That's the reason why I bring it up is because a lot of British actors, when they have to do an American accent, they go one of two ways. They either start talking like this, or they start talking very nasally. And
I like Gerard Butler's accent when he does American. I don't know what it is. And then the guy that plays Detective Lance on Green Arrow. They both have that same American cop accent, like they do the exact same one, which nobody talks like, but I love it when they do it.
Right.
Gerard Butler his American accent just sounds like he's always eating beef jerky.
Yeah. I like to call it the cop accent, but that's what he's got.
Just got a mouthful of jerky.
What's the name of the guy? John Michael Higgins?
John Michael Higgins showed up in this.
Totally boogied in this movie.
I love it so much.
He's so great.
I even love the introduction where we see his character. He's being interviewed on the news because he wrote a book called Human Health. And they're like, author of the book Human Health is here to talk to us about Blade, who we found out is killing people. Like, totally point A. It made no sense, but I was going with it because it's him.
That's called a Goyerism.
Yeah. Like, who better to talk about this recently discovered criminal than a guy who wrote a book called Human Health? Like, that's something that you read in 7th grade when you're not in PE. It's like 3 days a week is PE, 2 days a week you have to read that Human Health book.
Oh man, nothing was worse than hearing your gym teacher just talk about sexual organs and stuff in class. It was just like that. If you never want a horrible feeling, that to me is the worst. It's just hearing Coach Gauze talk about just all the correct ways about body parts. It's terrible.
But I like the tenuous connection. Like if a guy wrote a book about asthma, the news is going to interview him about a serial killer who rips people's lungs out. And what could that killer's motivation be? Like it's that kind of tenuous connection here. But it's Higgins, so it's good.
Speaking of tenuous, then you got good old Triple H here. And I was a little bit scared of Triple H in this from the get-go because obviously big giant wrestler, probably not the best actor. And not that I'm going to turn on you and say that he was a great actor in this because he really wasn't. But not nearly as bad as I thought he would have been, and he gives a Tyler Mane vibe if I've ever had one.
It's funny, man, because I was literally thinking to myself, I wonder if because he's in this movie is why we kept hearing his name as Sabretooth, like over and over again. It's gotta be.
I mean, he's got if you want to talk about comic books and stuff, he's got the right proportions for all of that, But
I'm
not a great actor.
I'm not the diehard wrestling fan that my friend Chris Elvins is. But if you ask me at a glance, I don't know that I would be able to tell you the difference between Tyler Mane and Triple H, at least not in this time period.
Well, Tyler Mane's probably got at least a decade on him, I would think.
Okay. But yeah, I would have easily believed they were the same person around 2004.
When you see that one big fight scene with Triple H, when he's going up against Ryan Reynolds, I had a weird moment watching that movie where I was like, oh man, Ryan Reynolds is really in good hands right now. There is no way that wrestler is going to hurt that man.
Oh yeah.
Whereas when you're watching Wesley Snipes, there's a very good real possibility that Wesley Snipes is going to kick someone in the face.
Yeah, you always hear those stories about people not pulling punches
with the sword.
One at a time, please.
Sorry.
I'm actually more afraid he's going to chop somebody with his sword. Even a prop sword hurts if you hit him hard enough.
It's true. What'd you say, Adam?
I don't remember. James Remar.
Adam.
It got off the day. It wasn't. Trust me. If I forgot it, it probably wasn't very good. So that's how I'm dealing with it. I'm a fan of James Remar, and I didn't know he was in this. Doesn't have a big role, but as the cop and everything, if you got to have a cop, James Remar is one of those cats that you just go to.
Every second he's there is pure joy.
That's all. Maybe that's what I was thinking. And Natasha Lyonne is in here as I don't even understand why this character's. I mean, I guess I do. She's got to be an exposition machine to some degree. But did you say that that was from something?
Yeah, she's basically Doctor Strange. Okay. Like this formula that she's working on is like the science equivalent of the Montesi formula that Doctor Strange, which is a magic formula that once it's cast, it kills all the vampires everywhere. And here, instead of Doctor Strange doing it with the Montesi formula, she's coming up with this, what do they call it? Daystar, this Daystar virus, which she's very clearly the surrogate for Doctor Strange here.
Can we also talk about the fact that Ryan Reynolds, while yes, he is an improv machine in this movie, he also has so much exposition he needs to get out in this movie, and he does a very good job of getting it out and not being like just like the portfolio out on the table kind of information machine sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. He's fun.
And it was very impressive to see because they have to explain the world through him basically. And I only noticed it because I was like, oh, that's very clever. Cause like he would slip in his own bits while extolling all this information. And it was just really nice to see like, oh man, like he really is doing a ton of the heavy lifting in this movie.
It's a fresh way to approach this kind of, dialogue heavy exposition and stuff. If you throw some fun jokes in there and somebody he has a a confidence when, delivering this kind of stuff that, if you're not doing it well, it comes off as crap. But for him, it feels like something that this character would say. And especially when you have all the jokes interweaved in there, it just feels so much more natural.
And I'm really liking the idea that one of you guys kind of suggested earlier, but Ryan Reynolds really just stepped up to salvage this movie. I mean, he kind of took this production on his back in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it sure feels that way.
It's his movie more so than Wesley Snipes, for absolute sure. Oh, and then we gotta talk Patton real quick here before we get into the final of everything.
Go ahead.
Patton's fantastic in this. I love the fact that he's but he even calls it out. He calls it out. The most fantastical part in all of this is that I'm whooping up on a 6-foot black man in basketball. And because that is the best, but and he doesn't. It's not the worst dribbling I've ever seen, but it's not great. But at least
he dribbles exactly like Patton Oswalt dribbles in real life.
Oh, I'm sure. At least the shot looked good. It looked like he, had at least decent form shooting. The dribble was it was middling, but the shot looked good. But I still don't believe for 1 second that that dude had 2 feet on him. He was gigantic. This gigantic man should have just went Makembe Mutombo and just smacked it out of his hand and laughed.
Now, there was a great episode of Benson, because I know when people tune in to hear about Blade Trinity, they want me to reference an episode of Benson, one of my favorite sitcoms from a long time ago. But there was an episode where Benson's nephew, who's 6'6", decides he doesn't care about education because he's going to play professional basketball. And then Benson introduces him to this accountant in the governor's office that looks very similar to Patton Oswalt. Maybe he's got a receding hairline, so somewhere between Patton Oswalt and Jason Alexander. And then the accountant takes the 6'6" youth to the basketball court and just whips his butt up and down the court for 20 minutes, and then teaching him a lesson. Look, you're not even good enough to beat me. You need to take school seriously, because even I couldn't play in the NBA. I like to think in real life, Patton Oswalt hustles the basketball court like that.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I'd watch that movie. A New White Man Can't Jump, but with Patton. Tell me, see, it's starting to sound good, isn't it? Now you're thinking.
Who would play Wesley Snipes' part, though? That's what's going to be the selling point.
Listen, we know the answer to this. Is Mahershala Ali is going to be.
Yes.
That's it. You're already done. We're finished.
I do like Kevin Hart, and you know it.
Oh Lord, I do like him wearing a Fantastic Four shirt. I thought that was a fun little wink.
Yeah, they actually have a copy of Tomb of Dracula in the movie itself here.
Very cool little shout outs and stuff. I like that. I thought that was a lovely touch. But overall, and I think you're absolutely right with this was kind of at the right time and stuff, because for the most part, the CGI is not too bad.
And also, look at this movie compared to there's no blood. Everybody bursts into flame. I mean, there's a tiny bit of blood. But compared to the first two, I feel like they really thought they were going to get a PG-13, but they couldn't get Wesley Snipes to quit saying MFer at the end of every sentence.
Yeah, but part of it is that's kind of the charm of this stupid character is just the wanton cursing all over the place. I don't know. I like it.
But outside of Wesley Snipes, everything else has that feel like this was the era when they started to try to crank R's down to PG-13. It's like everything except for Wesley Snipes feels like it's in a PG-13.
Also, don't forget about the most spectacular special effect of this movie, which is that it feels like Wesley Snipes was there for the whole thing.
Yes.
I will say this. Yeah, I mean, really, we'd all heard the stories, of all the problems and everything. But really, when you look at this, they did an amazing job of making him look very present and very involved in this movie. Even when you're kind of watching it with that, scrupulous eye a little bit, you still go, they did a really good job just kind of, padding it out in all the right places.
Yeah.
Well, let's get down to it, boys and girls. We've talked about Blade Trinity for a while, but before we get to our final review, we do have to ask ourselves one of the most important questions anyone could ever ask themselves at any time of their life, especially in times like now, is how does this movie relate to Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. Let's boogie. Howard Blank was the technical advisor for Blade Trinity. Don't know why Blade Trinity would need a technical advisor. I was kind of hoping Howard Blank was some sort of vampire expert. if not pretending to be a vampire himself. So I was super disappointed to learn that he's just a dude who knows a lot about casinos. Why does there need to be a technical advisor about casinos in Blade Trinity when there's no casino in the movie? You got me, bro. But in 1985, Howard Blank was a PA on Rocky IV. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Rocky IV is the most successful of all the Rockies at the box office. Huh. And at the time, it looked like the Rocky franchise was never going to end. It was a halcyon time. Stallone was out of his mind, putting his girlfriend in movies while he was still married to someone else, taking all manner of drugs and being a massive pain in the ass on set and in real life. It was a time when all the good stories came out. They're just rumors, so I can't state them here, but even with a minor amount of digging, you can check them out. And some are great. The best story on the set of Rocky IV is that Carl Weathers and Dolph Lundgren absolutely hated each other, to the point that Carl Weathers walked off set and stopped production for 4 days until Stallone came in and brokered a peace agreement between the two men. I wonder if that's why Stallone refuses to bring Carl Weathers back for anything all these years later. And there you have it, Dinglingers. This week's Stallone connection is Howard Blank. And yeah, I could have gone with Wesley Snipes or even James Remar, but I didn't, because you deserve better. I'm Sean Kovacs, and you are welcome, Nerdmerica.
We salute you. Well, let's get down to it. Here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check it out, head on over to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. And why don't you give us a like while you're there, man? We really appreciate that. Bruce, where does Blade Trinity fall in the Robin rating system for you?
I feel like I've let people down in this review by not mentioning how much I actually enjoyed this. How good I think this is. I think this is the best Blade movie, which is weird because, you know, the common opinion seems to be that this is the stinker of the bunch and that 2's the best. I expected Goyer to just create some kind of awful disaster here. He didn't. I think this isn't just like good if you've got nothing to do and you want to watch something. I think this is worth seeking. I would say even if you haven't seen the first 2 Blade movies, that this stands alone pretty well on its own. Yeah. I'm going to give this I'm shocking the world a little bit. I don't think I've given a high rating to a Blade movie, but I'm going to give this a Tim Drake. Soft side of the Tim Drake.
Very good. Sean, what you got?
For me, this would be a Tim Drake movie also. But not being women, you know, we're 3 dudes on a podcast. Yeah. 3 white guys on a podcast. Who'd have guessed?
The odds are against us.
I would imagine having a very difficult time watching this movie if I was a woman, because it is so unbelievably sexist, this movie. I mean, that is the thing about this movie, is that it is incredibly sexist. And because of that, I can't give it a Tim Drake, even though I really want to, because it is surprising. This movie has aged better than the other Blade movies, and that is shocking to say, but that is truly the case here. And so for me, I've got to give it a Damian Wayne, just because of the sexism of this movie.
That's fair. I think I'm along with Bruce. It's a very soft Tim Drake. It's close, but you're right. It leans a little bit more towards Damian, but Tim Drake, because again, I think we came in with the lowest of low expectations. You've got Goyer not only writing but directing. It seems like it's just destined for failure, and perhaps we've only heard it so many times that we figure, hey, it's going to be crap. And like I say to most of my dates, I lower the expectations as much as possible, and then you're like, oh, it's not that bad. Everything's okay, not too shabby, and that's how I
say it to the date.
Oh yeah, I tell them to it. Yeah, it's just like, look,
wow,
this is not going to be great. And then when it's pretty decent, they were like, see, he was kind of, and that's probably why I'm single. So That is it, everybody. Surprise, surprise on Blade. I don't think any of us or anyone listening would have figured it ended up this way. I sure as shooting didn't. But we're going to be doing this next week. Until then, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'd like to point folks over to Chubby Wizard because I've been doing something a little bit extra this week. I myself have felt like I needed some distraction from everything in the world, all the negative stuff, all the bummers that we're all going through. So I've put out like an episode a day of Chubby Wizard in some way, shape, or form up until today because we recorded this for a couple of other feeds. But if you go over there, in addition to the regular Chubby Wizard episode, you'll see there's some distraction episodes. One of them is just me and Chris trying to flesh out an idea that we have for a fictional story that nobody's ever going to write. We were just killing about 45 minutes. I think it'd bring a smile to your face to hear the story of Lone Wolf Accountant versus the Pencil Pushers. Also, in honor of one sweet Shanzi from the internet, I mic'd up my daughter and made her sit and listen to dad jokes for 30 minutes and recorded her reaction to those.
Poor girl.
I think that might bring a smile to your face, too. Like I tell people, you don't have to laugh with me. You can just laugh at me for these terrible ideas I'm getting and thinking people want to hear it. Anyway, there will be no current events mentioned. It's all just a little distraction. And then, of course, the pièce de la résistance of the distraction episodes is the Mr. Boogedy episode that one Adam Portrais joined me and Chris to record. And we give you 40 minutes of talk on a 45-minute so-called movie, Mr. Boogedy from 1986, and I think it's worth checking out. And we don't mention anything other than the topic at hand. It's honestly a distraction with absolutely zero reference to current events.
Good fun times for all. Sean, what else we got out there?
I have got a podcast called COVID-19 and You, where we really delve deep into it and why everyone is wrong but me. On thoughts of COVID-19. I lay blame at the feet of the current president of the United States, at the libs, as I like to call them, the libs.
Mm-hmm.
I get very angry with the senator from North Carolina who has profited from this. I really bring it down, guys. Like it is all I talk about. Also, like there's no personal stuff at all. It's just about COVID-19. It's called COVID-19 and You.
I really think you ought to check out that dad joke episode I did, Sean.
It's called COVID-19 and You.
A fantastical journey. Or you might want... Or if you want to go the opposite direction, you could check out Clone Wars 30 Questions, where every single episode we take 30 questions and ask them about the current season of Clone Wars. It's quite entertaining about a show that also is quite entertaining. The Film Find will be back very, very soon with myself and a special guest that hasn't been around in some time. So refresh your podcasting feeds for the Film Find. You'll be having more of that in the coming weeks and everything. So very fun.
You're not saying the person's name on purpose?
Kind of. I don't know. I just want to make sure that he's going to show up. If I'm quite honest.
It's not yet.
I won't hold your feet to the fire.
Thank you.
If he to be last minute to fill in, I'll know what happened.
It's what you don't know is it's my ex-wife. No, that's not true. That would be
oh my God, you poor bastard.
Oh, but that's not the case. So, but do check out the Film Find, Clone Wars 30 Questions, all that good stuff. Links, as always, are in the show notes that like you might be reading now because we gave you that little thing at the top of the show. See, we're leaving Easter eggs all for you, man. So do check out that next week. Patreon. That's right. We haven't gotten all the movies together yet, but if you are a member and a supporter over at patreon.com/HMP, not only do you get the pre-show, post-show, as well as the massive Dinger Zone, it's amazing, you also get to vote on a movie that we review every single month, and those movies will be up on Monday for all of you Patreon supporters to vote on. And we'll do whatever you guys say because we're working for you, even during these tough times. So that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're doing our Patreon exclusive. For Sweet Shanzi from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty.